So yes, I had had this experience of working with someone who I esteemed, and I thought that this would be the path for the rest of my life, or at least a lot of it. And then not being offered a contract past that, those were the facts. But my interpretation, which looked like I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, I should quit, I should give up, no one will hire me now, I don't have a future in dance, I don't know what to do. And I really lived inside of that for a lot of years until this moment when I was 35. And the result of it wasn't indeed an epiphany, was I suddenly had a blank canvas. I was not bound by the heartbreak of that experience. I was able to walk out on a Sunday night and thinking, gosh, what dance class do I want to go to in New York City tomorrow?
Welcome back to the Art of Aliveness with Annie B. And I am so thrilled to be back with my dear friend and extremely gifted dancer, Kristen Mangione. So, Kristen, it's great to be back with you. And thank you for part one and how you shared with us. I call it your origin story. And really about, as we both have shared as little girls and starting to dance because we had lots of energy and the whole journey and the discovery, which you shared with us, of what I call all of those things that we think are the answer to our wildest dreams and prayers. And then we have the opportunity to embark upon them. And for those of you who are listening and watching and may not have heard part one, you absolutely want to go back and listen to Kristen as she shares her journey with us. It's amazing. And at the end, she says, and it's not what I thought it was in reality. And the heartbreak and the disappointment that I think we all go through, or at least I know I certainly have, and I think many people do, when we've got external influences telling us about something that's possible. And then when you really do have the experience of it and you go through your own journey and discovery. So I feel like we are on, I'm going to call it, and I don't want to say there is someone who calls it the hero's journey or heroine's journey. I'm not quoting Joseph Campbell on this, but I think that Kristen's story is truly inspiring and it is a heroine's journey. So we're going to pick up with that moment of epiphany that really was a game changer for her life and the trajectory that she took her own life. And there's a wonderful quote, and I'm going to look down for a minute, and it is, life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. And I think that as she shares with us the journey that she was on and then how she ended up now with her latest creation, which she will share with us while we're together, it may have looked like it was a moment of finding herself. But I'm going to assert that the art of aliveness that she created was that she really did create herself out of having a moment of sadness and a disappointment. So I'm going to turn it over to you. So will you share with us that incredible moment that transformed your life forever?
Thank you. And yes, I'm happy to share that. So, this period of time between when I had that heartbreak, what I thought would seem like it would be my big break, and then it ended up not being the experience I expected. It was several years. It wasn't until I was about 35, almost 10 years later, 8 years later, that I was in a self-development course with something called Landmark Education. And I had gone there because someone had recommended to me that this would be an opportunity to sort of move on to what was next in my life. And I was really focused on business. I had become a healing artist. And what I didn't expect, the moment was we were looking at basically story and decisions. So when you talk about the hero or the heroine, I really have had this story of like I was a failed artist. I had my big break and I blew it. And in that context, in that experience of that sitting with and examining it, I got a very clear moment of realizing that what had actually happened, my experience and my interpretation of it were two completely different things. So, yes, I had had this experience of working with someone who I esteemed, and I thought that this would be the path for the rest of my life, or at least a lot of it. And then not being offered a contract past that, those were the facts. But my interpretation, which looked like I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, I should quit, I should give up, no one will hire me now, I don't have a future in dance, I don't know what to do. And I really lived inside of that for a lot of years until this moment when I was 35. And the result of it wasn't indeed an epiphany, was I suddenly had a blank canvas. I was not bound by the heartbreak of that experience. I was able to walk out on a Sunday night and thinking, gosh, what dance class do I want to go to in New York City tomorrow? Because I have an entire lifetime of training and that's available to me. And there's nobody stopping me from doing that except me. And when I realized that, I was free to start dancing again because I said so. And that was the moment I started again. And at 35, that was when a lot of my colleagues and contemporaries were already talking about or retiring. And I was just starting again. It was like it was a brand new start.
Thank you, Kristen, for sharing that, by the way. It's truly inspiring. And one of the things that, especially, and I invite all of you as our viewers and our listeners, the art of aliveness and letting our spirit soar, it's the art of aliveness. There's the art, the creative, expressive part that we think of, but there are the habits and the practices and the mindset. And if you even go back and rewatch and re-listen to what Kristen just said, at any given moment, if we can discern our story, the interpretation, the meaning that we add to events, including that we may not be as tall as we had been once upon a time, or that our hair or our skin or our circumstances or money or all of the myriad things that go on in our lifetimes that change, that we then use as evidence to become despondent and to give up. Whether we're 35, 75, 95, it just doesn't matter. What Kristen just sharing to me is truly the art of aliveness. And for her to walk out of a weekend and say, this is my life. I create my life. My life. We are at every waking, breathing moment. That possibility. So, Kristen, the way you shared it is so magnificent and so palpable. I just am so grateful. And so thank you. It really, it's inspiring. So Kristen then created, so she went back, picked up her dance shoes and started to dance again. So tell us a little bit about dance. And actually, I do want to share something very quickly. Before we picked up today for our conversation together, I said to Kristen, I'm a dancer, you're a dancer. I'm a wiggle worm dancer. I move around, my head bobs, I move around tremendously. When I speak, I'm very animated, and Kristen's very animated. And when we're together, she's very calm and very still, and yet very energizing. And you can feel her energy. And you can feel it. You can feel it. When you share your story, I would love if you would share a little bit of the anecdote that you shared with me, because she's a dynamic dancer and a movement machine. And yet, I discovered in the conversation with her, there's something about that balance of movement and stillness, because even when we're still, we think of it as being still, but our organs are working, our heart is beating, our blood is flowing. There's always a life force and an energy pulsing through us, even in the stillness. And I just think there's something magnificent in it. I don't know if that connects. As Kristen said, she had been a practitioner in healing arts and then went back, picked up her dance shoes, kind of build a whole career. But if you can weave that in to tell us a little bit about dance alchemy and then how you transitioned to this latest creation, which I'm so inspired by. And as I've shared before, I am in Kristen's course. She's got me moving again, and not like I don't move around a lot, but she's got me moving again in a way that's so organic and wonderful. So if you would share a little bit of dance alchemy, your journey, and then we can transition to the latest and greatest creation.
Thank you. Well, after the epiphany at 35, it was a really interesting time for me because with this new opening that suddenly dance was available to me again, because I recognized that within myself, it motivated me to want to explore with dance. So it was a time when I was dancing for other choreographers in New York City as a freelance artist. And I was also continuing my healing arts practice. And because of the commonality of both being rooted in the body and physical awareness, because the healing art that I was practicing is a type of acupressure called ohashiatsu, created by a man named Ohashi. And it was about how to use movement and passive weight. It was almost kind of like doing Tai Chi with a partner on a mat. So moving energy was synonymous with movement. And at that time, I realized that there was an enormous potential to bring that awareness of movement as a way to move and be aware of energy with dance movement and imagery. And at some point, it occurred to me, what could happen if I bring these two worlds, these two things that I've come to really understand and love together? And I started playing around with this idea for dancers, yoga practitioners, women I knew, friends. I started with a series of workshops about moving with and dancing with energetic awareness. And that was the genesis of what I now call dance alchemy. And it really is, it's a movement meditation, but I really have come to find it's more than that. It is moving and dancing with intention and attention. So specifically what happens in any of the sessions is I ask participants to often close your eyes and then through being verbally guided, go through a visualization journey of all kinds of different explorations of movement in the body. But the difference is that the movement isn't choreography or steps I'm teaching. The imagery and the sensing generates and creates the movement in the person. So it's an authentic reflection of what one's natural movement palette, how you naturally like to move, what feels good to you, what feels interesting, how your body naturally responds. So I really consider it to be that with this innate creativity, which I believe the Art of Aliveness speaks to, dance alchemy is a way in which we reconnect with our ability to move like we did when we were babies and children. That's what I'm interested in. And that's what I currently assist and help people and guide people and partner with people like yourself in these explorations.
Very clear, by the way. It's great. Thank you. We say a little bit, by the way, about what you shared about stillness.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
And
Thank you. I totally stepped over that. My goodness.
I love everything that you said because I'm going to keep weaving us because it's just extraordinary.
The stillness piece. So that really comes from While I was completing my first levels of training to become an Ohashiatsu Shiatsu practitioner, I happened to spend time at a Zen monastery, a retreat center in upstate New York. And that was the first place where I encountered Zen meditation, which is their meditation practice is sitting in complete silence and stillness. And there's an emphasis on what that type of, I love you said alive stillness, stillness with energy, what that experience brings to a person. It taught me because I did not only retreats with my mentor there, but I went on to do work study. I lived there for 2 summers and I worked with the monks and the nuns. So I spent a lot of time there. I actually led my own retreats there a couple of years in a row of Jan's Alchemy a number of years ago. It taught me as a dancer how to feel the pure potential of movement while being still. It taught me that movement, like real possibility in movement, comes first from being quiet and listening. That's where it really comes from, which is also how I create and I lead Dance Alchemy.
So thank you for sharing that. And as you were sharing, one of the things that there's a tremendous amount of research, not only for young people, but as we go through our life progression about the power of meditation and meditation practices. They've been around forever. And, as we progress, and given that my mission is creating a whole new conversation for this natural process that we call aging, as we say, chronological aging is inevitable, but deterioration, obsolescence, a lack of clarity, all of those things are really a choice. And a lot of research about the power of meditation as we progress to have that as a practice. So it's not only go out and play pickleball. Tons of my friends are out playing pickleball and, getting their pickleballs, sprained ankles and everything else, because it's a pretty aggressive sport. And the power of doing yoga, the power of meditation as we mature through life, to maintain our flexibility, to maintain our focus. But there was a way you said about that internal energy and the life force. And I think about when people talk about as we mature and our wisdom, and to be able to listen to our own internal guidance. And I want to, it's something I had shared with Kristen that I found today that I happen to have in my office, and I'm going to look down for a minute. It's a quote from Deepak Chopra. The true spiritual secret is this: what you seek, you already are. And I'm going to assert we already have. True success is discovering your inner divinity. It is the ability to love and have compassion, to trust your intuition, and awaken to your unlimited creative nature. And that's very much what I hear in the way you're sharing about dance alchemy, that you have used years of training. And Kristen and I have talked about my training was as an expressive arts therapist. So I was a semi-professional dancer and a clinician for years. And in the early days of mind-body medicine, before it was known the way that it is today, and Kristen and I, and that's part of why I love having her with me, is that our backgrounds are similar and yet different, kind of academically. But where we have landed is about the power of dance and expression. And I think we've also, I love that with dance alchemy, because alchemy to me is not just about dance. I mean, I just think about how many people say, oh, but I'm not, and this will be a great segue into what Kristen has created, because people will say, but I'm not a dancer. I have 2 left feet. No, probably not, but all of these things that we say about our bodies and the judgments that we have about our capacity because we benchmark it against professional dancers, some aesthetic that is an external conversation. or people who are told you don't want to show off, and be quiet and be still and you move around too much. There's so many conversations that we integrate and then don't trust our own wisdom. And that's very much, I love how you share that. Does that kind of capture the essence of dance alchemy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And to your point, and it's so, I realized foundational to my philosophy and approach, which is that if you have a body and you can move, you can dance. Children don't, before there's ever this idea of specialized knowledge, going to a children's dance class or having training, children move. They're already dancers. I mean, you see it in them innately. And what I'm really interested in, my mission I'm discovering, is that I want to be a bridge for people regardless of wherever you are in your life, age, life experience, that if you have a body, you can move. It's not a lost art. It's just forgotten, and you can remember.
So it's a perfect segue, by the way, Kristen, because I would love you to use this opportunity to tell us about your new creation. And as I said, I am her student, which is so great. And again, because I think I'm not one of my missions in all of the art of aliveness and letting our spirit soar is that we are vibrant and alive. And as I said, chronological aging is inevitable, deterioration, immobility, all of those things are really a choice, and we make those choices now. So moving is, and I think Kristen and I talked about it, that how do we know, like when we're born, that the being that is coming out or however it gets presented to the world is alive because it's moving. There's a heart, there's a heartbeat, there's a breath, there's movement, the very sign of life, and that life force that's always there. And that Kristen is taking this vision and contributing and has developed and is developing a movement that is timeless and actually ageless and really serves a mature population. Because how many mature adults, in whatever way we interpret that, either are like me and I performed and I danced and then I started to do a number of other things. I still dance, I go out dancing, but I'm not taking dance classes, although I take lots of classes that are movement oriented. But how many people were told, don't dance or don't move? And they always wanted to. And as they're maturing and then they wonder why, well, their joints don't work as well and their energy isn't the same. So Kristen to me is multi-generational in her gift and what it is she's bringing to all of us because it's a message that transcends age. It's a life message. So will you tell us about what you created next? It's very exciting.
Thank you. So I have recently created a program called The Chance to Dance. And as you said, it's specifically for people. I'm focusing on women, although I will say I have had men in my workshops and in my classes. This particular endeavor, I'm focusing on women because I noticed in having conversations with people, especially women, when I shared with them my background and that I'm a professional dancer, I would often encounter two things: responses of, oh, I love dance. I wanted to take lessons when I was little. I never had a chance. My mother said no, or my father said no, or it never happened. And now I feel like I missed that. It's just not going to happen because I'm XYZ age. Or I love dance. Oh my gosh. I took classes up until high school and I loved it. I did ballet, I did tap, I did jazz, I performed. And then I don't know, I went to college and then I got a job and just life took over and I miss it. But I love going out dancing with my friends or, whatever. So there's these like two parallel tracks, seemingly, that dance is a want. And it's a question of how to make that available again. And as you said, a lot of it, and we do this in the program, we start examining what are some of the conscious and especially unconscious beliefs and biases that we have. I call them the myths around dance, that it is only for the fit, it's only for the very young, it's only for the very talented, it's only for the professional or pre-professional. No, there's a whole other world of possibilities, just like when I was 35, right? Those conversations would have not had me do what I did. And so I am living proof. And now in my program, I have designed it so that participants can begin to break down their own internal biases and find the same freedom that I found for myself. And we go through that process. We go through looking at all of these benefits that you talked about, the physical benefits, the cognitive benefits, neuroplasticity. You can create new neural connections in your brain through movement. You can elevate your endorphins, your feel-good chemicals naturally. You can connect with spirit or self or source or God or however you choose. There's like a myriad of benefits that science has measured and demonstrated. We're also looking at things like storytelling and narrative, your archetype, what is your journey, your own story through dance. So reclaiming creativity and your creative voice. And finally, your connection, like what do you want dance to be for yourself? You get to set, you get to explore, and you get to design it and take it out further into whatever capacity you want. So it's a whole transformative arc about exploring dance and movement. And as you said, it's ageless. It's open to women of any age. Experience, no experience. I meet people where they are, and then we begin this journey. So the chance to dance is what I am creating.
So one of the most precious things too that Kristen didn't, aside from everything you just mentioned, and I so love that you do this, is community.
Mm.
And especially with having gone through a pandemic and isolation and being by ourselves more. And it's one of the biggest things. And it used to be, I think it was much more an issue as people matured. And younger generations are going through the experience of isolation that elder seniors, whatever word we want to use for someone on that life trajectory. Again, there's no language. There's not really a vocabulary for it, and I'm pretty particular about that. And that's part of why I'm doing this is how do we create a new vocabulary to talk about this natural process that we all go through. Um, so that we get to be in moving together, literally and figuratively in community. And Kristen does this live, and she's in Hoboken, New Jersey, and she does it virtually. So she's creating both a tactile community and a virtual community. And my intention with her is to take this global. So this is something, and to explore what all of the traditions are, because everybody moves. And I can remember when I was in Greece many years ago, and I spoke Pidgin Greece, and I was with a friend of mine, and we were on a bus trip from Athens or we were in Crete going to one of the island ports. And we stopped, got off the bus, and I was in a pasture like cows, and there was a farmer and he spoke no English, and my Greek was about that big. But through mind, through movement, we were able to communicate who we were, who he was, to find out about him. But it was all through movement, So there's so many ways, and that you're doing this, that you're doing this, and the gift that you are to human beings and to women. And that at what point, at what point do women get freed from all of the stories about our bodies, about ourselves? And how do we look at ourselves in the mirror and have that image that gets reflected back be the magnificent woman that we are, wherever we are in our physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental trajectory? So I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be with you on the journey, and I'm grateful that you do this. So thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
one of the things that I want to read something, so I'm going to look down because I want to read, but it is something that I do with all of my dear guests. And it is probably one of my very, 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 very favorite quotes. And it's by Martha Graham. And the quote is, I am a dancer. I believe that we learn by practice, whether it means to learn to dance by practicing dancing or to learn to live by practicing living. In each, it is the performance of a dedicated, precise set of acts, physical or intellectual, from which comes shape of achievement, a sense of one's being, a satisfaction of spirit. One becomes, in some area, an athlete of God. So if you would share with us your recommendation, you can do at least one, and something that, so we are, and I'm going to say we are inviting you within the next 24 hours. What would be an action that our viewers and our listeners could take that really are part of, whether it means to learn to live and to learn to dance by practicing dancing, or to learn to live by practicing living? What would you recommend? And this is an invitation to all of you. And we really do invite you, and go for it. Be daring. That's part of the art of aliveness. I have no idea what Kristen's going to come up with right now. We didn't rehearse this, but I trust whatever it is, it will transform your life, because I know Kristen.
Well, what I recommend in this 24 hours of anyone listening to this is take a minute, close your eyes, and just get really still. As you do that, and in order to get still, you can just focus on your breathing, just take a couple deep breaths. And what I recommend, focus on your body, focus on your heart area. And then just ask yourself, what does your soul need to come alive? What does your soul need to come alive? And then notice if something pops into your head. You're basically asking your intuition what it needs. What does your soul need? And then whatever you hear, take some action to do that thing. So if you hear in your heart, I need to dance, dance. Can be in your kitchen doing the dishes, can be in your living room, can be in a class, doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is taking the action. If your heart says to you, nature, go for a walk in nature. 10 minutes, tiny, but actionable. But the important thing is, don't ask your mind, ask your body, ask your heart, because I believe that is really the connection to your soul. And just like in that beautiful Martha Graham quote, that's where your soul speaks. Access that first and then act.
I'm taking it on. That's awesome. Thank you so much. And, write in the chat, let us know what your thoughts are. And, and you can even write back. We have this threads, by the way. So we will have, part of all of this. There's all the links to find Kristen. There's the links to find me, our Facebook links, my Facebook page, The Art of Aliveness. It's Let Your Spirit Soar. There's a Facebook page. We'd love to hear any feedback. And Kristen says, really extraordinary. And when she said, get out of your head, drop down into your heart, and that aspect of trusting yourself. And I love that dance around the kitchen, by the way. That was really great. So is there anything else? Look at all the show notes. You can find us. It will tell you how to find Kristen. It's been so much fun. I'm going to have her come back. Maybe I'll have her come back in a few weeks after I've finished her program, and then we can do another episode, which would be awesome, just as a follow-up. So then I can really tell you, like from the hands-on experience of working with her, which I'm already doing, but I think there might be another, time for us to hang out together and talk and share with everybody. It would be fun. So anything else before we close?
Just immense gratitude to Anne for having this conversation with me, for inviting me, for having the opportunity to share my story and to share what I'm about in this forum, and to share in our conversation this opportunity to really, really open possibilities for what is available to all of us wherever we are in life. And I'm enormously grateful, and I'm really left with that we get to say, we get to create. And I think that's the big message here in this, is to remember we get to create. Like, if that isn't divinity, I don't know what is.
And when you share that, what I'm also very present to is that part of the magic is that we get to co-create, not only with divine, whatever your belief is in divinity and creator and creativity and all of that we get to co-create. As human beings, we are in this together. And that's very much the experience, Kristen, that I am in with you. We are co-creators for what's possible for ourselves and for generations to come. And I feel honored and privileged to have you as a friend and to have you here sharing and bringing this message out to the world. So thank you.
Thank you.
Much love. Thank you for joining the Art of Aliveness with Annie B. I'm Anne Borow-Lawrence. Join us next time for more great interviews with inspiring artists, all backgrounds, shapes, and sizes, where we will be investigating just what is it that keeps people alive, vital, and vibrant in mind, body, and spirit throughout their lifetimes. If you enjoyed this interview, please share it with your friends. Please like the podcast series, and please do subscribe. With much love and gratitude, and see you the next time.